vas a olvidar. Yo he tenido tanto temor. ¿Para qué vas a olvidar? Si solo quiero tu amor.
caído los esquemas de mi vida.
Recording in progress.
Hey, Mayor, the meeting's being recorded.
Great, let's wait for a couple more people to come into chambers. Wait a couple more minutes. We have some council members still meandering into chambers. I believe we have Councilmember Mendoza on the line.
Yes, we do.
Friday night. All right, let me go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody on a Friday evening to a special City Council meeting on March 11th, 2022 of the Santa Ana City Council. Let me go ahead and just make some opening housekeeping remarks. This meeting is taking place with in-person attendance and by teleconference via Zoom, and the public can access the meeting via the Santa Ana YouTube channel or the city's website. And as usual, please bear with us as our technology may interrupt the meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the clerk if she'll please call roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Hernandez?
Present.
Councilmember Lopez? Councilmember Mendoza?
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Peñalosa?
Present.
Councilmember Fan? Mayor Pro Tem Becerra?
Here.
And Mayor Sarmiento.
Here, let me go ahead and call on Councilmember Peñalosa if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Of course. Thank you, Mayor. If you could all please rise and face the flag and put your right hand over your heart and follow along, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And let me go ahead and move along to the public comment section of the meeting. And I believe we have one speaker card for somebody who's going to be addressing us in person. And then I'll go ahead and hand it off to you, Madam Clerk, to go ahead and call on those that are online or joining us virtually. I just want to remind everybody if they can please state their name, and you don't have to give us an exact address, but just tell us what ward you reside in. And as usual, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I believe the only person I have here in front of us to address this in person is Victor Mendez. Go ahead, Victor.
Thank you. Yes, I think as I heard some of the comments over this past several weeks, I'm kind of concerned that this process or some of the comments may be leading to some type of splintering or division within the community. While certainly you have a job to do, and I think this process that you've observed has been great, I just want to encourage you not to get caught up in how this these new districts should really be divided. They should be divided fairly, equitable, and something representative of the community. But I think sometimes we get into certain criteria that I think is a little bit kind of a little bit too much or a little bit too much of an extension. You know, it just could lead to divisions. I think we just need to understand we're all neighbors. We all care about each other. We all want to do what's right. And I think at the end of the day, you know, if we're going to live next to each other, we just got to kind of find a way to get along. I don't think we should worry too much about, you know, issues of environmental impact or whatever. Certainly we don't want to marginalize our communities. But sometimes when I hear these comments, I wonder if we're really kind of fractionalizing our city, but through these comments that I'm hearing. So I just encourage everyone on this diocese to do the right thing, be mindful of the fact you're trying to not only kind of figure out how the city should vote and who they should vote for or who the representatives might be, but also, you know, we don't want to create a city that's, you know, so balkanized where one part of the city is this and the other part of the city is that. You know, I think we should all just look at the city as one, you know, and work together, help our neighbors, and do what we can to reach out when, you know, the city needs its help. So that's all I'm really saying, is that I'm just kind of concerned that some of the comments are, you know, kind of concern me. And I just encourage you to look at your responsibilities, make sure in addition to creating fair and just lines, you also don't, you know, you don't create some type of friction or some type of division unnecessarily in the creation of those lines. And I think you're doing a very good job of hearing everybody out. I appreciate what you've been doing. I think you know, this is about as fair a process as anyone could ask, but this is all I want to say. I mean, whatever you do and end up with, I'll be probably pretty happy. I just don't want to see this become kind of, like I said, a balkanization of Santa Ana through different political perspectives or whatever. I want to see a city that kind of works together in unison, cohesion, and we're a community where everyone kind of looks out for each other. And I think that's what Santa Ana is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. We actually have one more person that would like to address us in person, and that is Lino Paras.
Lino Paras Duarte. Came here just to see how you do the redistricting, because we also have our own redistricting right now going on. I also noticed that the present city council does not have any black person, but then when I look into black representative, when I look into the demographics, then it gives me the answer. So, but anyway, so I'm just here driving all the way from LA. Took me a while to look for a place to eat around the place because I thought I'm gonna be late. And also, for full disclosure, our city attorney is also one of your council member, which is Taipan, so I'd like to see her performance also here. Thank you.
Well, if you're looking for a place to eat, go to downtown. There's a lot of good places to eat. Thank you for that. Let me go ahead and turn it over to the clerk, because I believe we have some members of the public that wish to address us that are online.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I unmute the callers that have joined us virtually, I did want to announce that we did receive written communication, 4 in support of MAP L, 3 in support of MAP L2, 5 support of MAP L2 revised, 3 in support of MAP M, 1 in opposition of MAPs F and K, and 1 general comment on the process and consideration of newly added maps. And with that, Zoom ID, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device to unmute your call.
Hello. Hello, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ana Charco, and I'm here on behalf of Latino Health Access with the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. I first want to thank you for your time and effort to compromise. I also want to thank Daisy for getting the interpretation. YouTube, a lot of our base are actually watching this meeting and might be joining us. So I want to go ahead and continue proposing L2 and the revised L2 map we submitted recently as a coalition. I believe the L2 revised maps and L2 do the best compromise while maintaining neighborhood associations and communities of interest together. A few points to mention is we are against K2. Unfortunately, K2 continues to place communities, low-income communities with more affluent communities. For example, the Ohio Madison Park are still together with Republic Homes and Metro Classics. Communities are completely different. You need to plan K2, the South Coast area is placed with the Cornerstone Village community. And then for the council members that might not be familiar with Cornerstone Village, neighborhood association, that association is composed of the mini apartments and standard apartments as known to the community. I am confident that residents in the south end of the city do not share the same interests as the residents in the mini apartments or the standards apartments. Please make these revisions that maintain those communities of interest together and do not dilute the voting power of low-income residents, how K2 is doing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Zoom ID, Benjamin Vasquez, if you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is Benjamin Vasquez. I'm a resident of Hedinger Park, and I'm here to support a newly submitted SARC map, or the L map. It creates a great central ward for Santa Ana that keeps Hedinger Park together. The Standard Redistricting Coalition was developed with community input over the course of nearly half a year and emphasized the lived experiences of communities of interest, such as low-income people, people of color, working families, and people living in mobile park homes. So we have a South ward, and we continue to have a strong Vietnamese ward as well. I believe this map is the best representative of Santa Ana. So I would be in support of map L, the SARC map. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID Araceli Robles, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Sí, puede
¿Me
continuar.
escuchan?
Sí.
Ok, gracias. Mi nombre es Araceli Robles. Yo vivo en la ciudad de Santana por 20 años. Yo vivo en el vecindario de Eastside, que está muy cerca del vecindario Mini. Estoy llamando para apoyar el mapa que estamos pidiendo junto con la coalición. Algo que también me preocupa muchísimo, muchísimo, es todo lo que están haciendo ustedes con nuestra comunidad. Están haciendo un juego político inaceptable, porque acuérdense que no se tratan de mapas, se trata de vidas, de nuestras vidas, de mi familia, de mi comunidad, quien está en juego para los próximos 10 años. Les pido por favor que tomen más en consideración que ustedes son servidores públicos y están para apoyar y servir a la comunidad. Por favor, ¿qué tiene que ver la comunidad de Mini con las personas que viven en el área del sur? No es nada personal con ellos, simplemente con ustedes que tomen en conciencia y lleven los recursos que realmente necesitamos como comunidad. Les pido, no les pido, les exijo que realmente dejen de estarse haciendo ese juego político entre ustedes, tratando de proteger una silla que al final del día nosotros los pusimos ahí. ¿Cuánto dinero no se han gastado por una reunión y otra reunión? Porque es un juego entre ustedes. Están jugando con nuestras vidas, con la de nuestros hijos. Eso no se puede soportar aquí en la ciudad de Santana. Les pido que realmente tomen una decisión con conciencia y en la noche que se vayan a dormir a su cama diga, hicimos lo correcto, lo que la comunidad necesita. Recuerden que todavía estamos en pandemia y no sabemos cuántos recursos más vamos a necesitar como comunidad. Así es que hagan lo correcto y hagan su trabajo. Gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Araceli Robles. I've been living in Santa Ana for about 20 years. I live in the East Side community near Mini Street. And I'm here to support the map, the coalition's map. And you are supposed to be doing the work for the community and not doing political game. This is not just about maps, but this is about the life of our families. This is about the community and what we will have to bear for the next 10 years. So we are asking you as public servants to do your job and serve the community. What does the Mini community has to do with this, the communities in the south of the city? And this is need to be reasonable with this. And I'm demanding that you stop your political games and to stop protecting a chair, because we are the ones who put you in that chair. All the money that you're spending on this is supposed to be to protect our lives and the lives of our children. We want you to make a conscious and conscientious decision so that when you go to sleep tonight, you can say that you did the right thing. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we don't know how many more resources we are going to need. So we're asking you to do the right thing and to do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID or caller with the last three numbers 477, if you would please, you may proceed with your comment.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is Dale Helbig, 32-year resident of Ward 3. I submitted a letter, and I'll just paraphrase some of the stuff that I put in it. Essentially, it's disheartening that on Monday, the City Council said that more maps can still be submitted. And over the course of the next 4 days, it appears that 9 more maps were turned in. And there's at least 10 maps now that have not even been evaluated to be considered. So I don't know why the request was to submit more maps if you're not even going to look at what residents are submitting. So that's one thing. The other thing is the city attorney last Monday also said that the 10% threshold was a hard and fast number. And I'm hoping that she'll clarify that tonight because 10% can be exceeded under extenuating circumstances that I think can be justified. When we're dealing with 76.7% Hispanic population and we're trying to get an Asian plurality when it's only 12% in the whole city, it's extremely difficult to do that, as you guys saw when you did the modifications to the 5 maps that you looked at last week. If we exceed it and we have 0 neighborhoods that are split up, that would be my goal. And that's what I submitted, was 0 neighborhoods get split in half. And I think that's important. And I'm hoping that you guys consider that. You guys drew lines right through neighborhoods last Monday. And so no matter what map you pick, I'm hoping that council members contact neighborhood association presidents for neighborhoods that are split in half, and you talk to them, make sure they understand what's happening before this gets approved. And, you know, they need to get involved as well, but, you know, for some reason they're not. And based upon the number of speakers that are here tonight at City Hall and probably calling in, there's very little involvement, and they're going to be rudely surprised that their neighborhood got chopped in half. So good luck to you on your selection process once again, and I would like to see the community maps that were submitted this last week be evaluated by redistricting partners. Thanks.
Thank you. Zoom ID Vincent Tran, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed with your comment.
All right. Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Vincent. I'm the community engagement coordinator of Your Eyes and a member of the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. I'd like to express my support of the newly revised L2 proposed map by the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. This newly drawn map addresses the various concerns stated by various council members during Monday's redistricting hearing, also keeping together important communities of interest that have stated their desires to be placed in the same wards. This includes keeping the South Coast metro area full in order to respect the numerous residents who have spoken in favor of that change. Also brings together similar neighborhoods, associations such as the Santa Ana Memorial Park, Wilshire Square, Hettinger Park, as requested by Councilmember Penaloza during Monday's redistricting hearing. In addition, this map strengthens the voices of housing burden residents from Willowick and Sullivan and keeps Little Texas whole. This map also provides substantial representation to environmentally impacted communities such as Delhi and Madison Park by keeping them in the environmental justice corridor and creating an environmental justice ward. Delhi and Madison Park residents have voiced their requests to be kept together in a ward separate from South Coast Metro, as they share few commonalities, and that request should be respected. The same as residents requesting to keep South Coast Metro full. And it's crucial that this council move forward with this map as it provides best representation for all communities in Santa Ana. On the other hand, I urge council to remove map F and F2 from consideration, as it does not respect public comment that's been made by Delhi and Madison Park residents to keep their neighborhoods separate from South Coast Metro, and said they want to be paired with Logan and Frenchport neighborhoods, which is heavily impacted neighborhoods with environmental issues. In addition, map F and F2 also splits the concentration of mobile home parks on First and Fairview into 2 districts rather than keeping them whole. And lastly, it breaks up the housing burden communities such as Willowick and Sullivan. Again, I would like to express my support for map L2 revised by the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition, and I urge the council to vote yes on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID Sarai, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device. ¿Puede bajar
¿Sí me escuchan?
Sí, puede bajar el volumen en el aparato. Zoom ID Maria Valencia, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
My name is Maria Estela Valencia. I'm a community organizer with OCO and a lifelong Santana resident. I currently live in Ward 3. But before coming to live in the Lion Street community, I used to live in the South Coast metro area for 12 years. I actually graduated from Segerstrom High School back in 2010. To me, it doesn't make sense to have any district that includes the Delhi community with the South Coast metro area. The needs of these two communities are completely different. Putting them into one district will dilute the needs of the Delhi community. I feel like where I currently live in this Lion Street community makes more sense to be included in a district with the Delhi community because we both face environmental justice issues. Regardless of what others might think, that is a big concern for me, ensuring to have someone that could voice our concerns as a community. And there's also a lot of apartments of low income status and immigrant mixed status. Our ward map should have a district that protects the EJ corridor because those are concerns for us as residents in that area, which is disregarded by draft maps F and K along with those revisions. Those maps dilute the voice of the community. That is why I urge the council to consider draft map L2 revised submitted by the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. And that coalition has taken months to outreach and engage the community that probably wouldn't have even be calling in today. And this process is extremely important to us and to myself as a resident because we want to be heard and we want for our needs and concerns to be the forefront of the maps for the next 10 years. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Zoom ID Fatima Paque, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Fátima Paque. Buenas tardes, alcalde y miembros del consejo de aquí de la ciudad de Santa Ana. Mi nombre es Fátima Paque y yo soy una residente de aquí de Santa Ana desde más de hace 16 años. Soy voluntaria de OCO, Orange County Congregation Community Organization. Pertenezco a la iglesia de San José en la Civic Center y la May. Las necesidades que nosotros tenemos aquí son muy altas, puesto que la mayoría de los habitantes somos de bajos ingresos. Me interesa mucho el mapa L2 y he mirado los cambios que hicieron, porque todo el área desde la Main hasta la Warner, la mayoría de todos los apartamentos, pues somos de comunidades latinos. Y somos muy diferentes, por ejemplo, al Santiago Park, a Las Flores. Por lo tanto, estoy apoyando estos mapas de la coalición porque ellos están escuchando las voces de la comunidad para que los futuros concejales que nosotros tengamos nos defiendan y nos propongan cambios positivos para la ciudad y no solamente para su bolsillo. Y no estén pensando solamente en ellos, sino estén pensando en el equilibrio de las diferentes comunidades y diversidades que tenemos en nuestros vecindarios en Santa Ana, ya que Santa Ana es una ciudad que abriga a todas las comunidades sin importar su raza, el color, el dinero, y ellos nos han ayudado también el concilio para que nosotros podamos satisfacer las necesidades de vivienda, de salud y educación, y entre otras, pero sobre todo para el desarrollo de nuestra ciudad. Muchas gracias.
Good evening. My name is Fatima Paque, Mayor, City Council members, and I am a resident of Santa Ana for over 16 years, and I volunteer with OCO. And I belong to St. Joseph's Church on Civic Center and Main. And the needs in our community are very high. For example, we are a very low-income community, and I'm interested in supporting MAP L2 because this, and I saw that the changes that you created in the map, and along Main and Warner, we have a heavy Latino population, and we're very different from other communities such as Santiago Park and Las Flores Park. And I'm supporting the coalition maps because they listened to the community needs and we want any future council members to protect us and defend us, and not just be looking out for money in their pockets. And we need to balance the community's needs in Santa Ana, because Santa Ana is all about community, irrespective of race and color and money. So the city council needs to look after our needs and housing and education, etc., so we can have a better city. Thank you.
Zoom ID Irene Bautista. If you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Buenas tardes, ¿me escuchan?
Sí, puede continuar.
Sí, buenas tardes, honorable alcalde y miembros del concilio. Es un gusto volverlos a saludar. Mi nombre es Irene Bautista, soy voluntaria con OCO y pertenezco a la Iglesia del Mesías. Nuevamente me presento ante ustedes para pedirles que por favor sigan apoyando los mapas de la coalición de redistribución de distritos, específicamente el mapa L, L2 y el L2 revisado. Nos gustaría que por favor busquen la manera de llegar a un acuerdo para que mantengan en mente a todas las comunidades de interés que nosotros les hemos compartido en los últimos meses. Que Dios les bendiga y los guíe en sus decisiones. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Hello, it's good to be here again. My name is Irene Bautista, and I'm a volunteer with OCO, and I attend the Church of the Messiah. And I'm asking you to support the maps submitted by the coalition, and the L2 and L2 revised. And these items keep the communities of interest that we've been bringing to you for a long time. And this is the low-income communities, and we want you to support these maps. God bless you, and may He direct you and help you in your decisions. Thank you very much.
Zoom ID Miguel Hernandez. If you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Yes, good evening, council members. My name is Miguel Hernandez. First of all, I want to thank you for being here on a Friday and for all your efforts. I am a long life resident of over 50 years of Santa Ana, and I'm currently living in the South Coast metro area. Previously, I lived in the Delhi community for over 16 years, and I'm speaking today in support of map L, L2, and L2 revised. I believe these maps support both the South Coast and the Delhi community's interest of having fair representation. The South Coast metro area and the Delhi community are very different communities. The Delhi community is a working class, low income Latinx community with many renters, and the South Coast community is a middle class community with many homeowners. By voting on map L, L2 or L2 revised, we can ensure that our historically marginalized communities have a voice, which will make our city safer and help everybody thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID Rocio Guzman. If you would please select the microphone icon on your device. Thank you.
Sí, hola, buenas noches, ¿me escuchan?
Sí.
Buenas noches, señor alcalde Sarmiento y concejales. Mi nombre es Rocío Paredes Guzmán. Soy residente de aquí de la ciudad de Santa Ana por más de 20 años. Vivo aquí en el vecindario que es de Cornerstone Village, que es aquí en la calle Mini Street. Es un vecindario, ¿verdad?, que se compone por diferentes apartamentos, también por lo que es Standard Apartments. Estos apartamentos realmente no tienen nada en común en lo que es el vecindario de Metro Point. Nuestras necesidades realmente son muy, muy diferentes, ¿sí? Y no es nada personal con aquellas personas o con aquella comunidad, ¿verdad? Entonces, realmente a mí me gustaría, ¿verdad?, que cuando están tomando este tipo de decisiones o están tomando hacer este tipo de cambios, que nos tomaran en cuenta, ¿no? Porque como comunidad nos ponemos en la silla en la que ahorita están Y también queremos ahora como comunidad pedirles a ustedes, exigir de que puedan tomar la mejor decisión que se pueda, porque va a impactar por 10 años a nosotros. Yo vivo en el área donde estoy rodeada de fábricas, están las vías del tren, nuestras paredes están llenas de graffiti. No creo que estén igual así en lo que es la comunidad de Metro Point. Entonces, realmente sí, exijo que se tome la mejor decisión posible, porque también aquí nosotros las familias tenemos de 3 hasta 4 trabajos para poder solventar los gastos, lo que es la renta, lo que son nuestros biles. Entonces, realmente piensen muy bien la decisión que van a tomar. Sí, yo por eso estoy en contra de K2 y apoyo a las 2 versiones del mapa L2. No es fácil para ustedes, lo sabemos, pero también queremos que hagan conciencia de esa decisión que, como les comento, va a afectar 10 años a lo que es mi comunidad, a lo que es mi gente, y yo estoy hablando por una Esther, por una Adriana, por una Edith. Son muchas personas que no se presentan a veces aquí a hablar, ni presencialmente, ni quieren dar acá su voz, porque creen que van a tomar sus datos y va a venir inmigración y los van a deportar. Esas son las razones por las cuales a veces la gente no se acerca, o porque no sabemos lo que realmente está pasando. Y así como ustedes lanzan una campaña para ser concejales o para ser alcaldes, también lo mismo hagan, ¿verdad?, de darnos un aviso, al menos por correo, una carta, se va a hacer esto, preséntense si tienen algún comentario o algo, ¿verdad?, por aportar. Gracias por su atención y de verdad tomen la mejor decisión.
Le queda 15
Gracias.
segundos. Gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening, Mayor Sarmiento and City Council members. My name is Rocio Paredes Guzman, and I've been a resident of Santa Ana for over 20 years. I'm in the Cornerstone Village community and around Mini Street. We have lots of different apartments, like the standard apartments as well. And these apartments don't have a lot in common with Metro Point. And the needs are very different than theirs. This is nothing personal against them, against that community. We just would like that the decision that you make, that you take into consideration that the changes, and that you listen to our community. And we, as a community, demand that you make the best decision for the community, because this decision will affect us for the next 10 years. And in our community, we live with lots of factories around, there's railroad tracks, there's a lot of graffiti, and I don't think that's anything like what they have in Metro Point. So I'm asking you to make the best decision possible. We have families that some of us have 3 and 4 jobs just to pay our expenses, our rent and bills, etc. So we'd like you to think this thoroughly when you make your decision. I don't agree with map K2, but I agree with map L2. And we know and understand that this is not an easy decision for you. But again, your decision is going to affect us, our community, for the next 10 years. It's going to affect our people for the next 10 years. So I'm speaking here not just for myself, but for Edgar, for Adriana, for Edith, who are not here and cannot and don't want to speak up because they're afraid that you might take their information and the immigration is going to go and deport them. Those are the reasons why sometimes they don't speak up. But just like you have your campaigns for city council or for mayor, send us a letter. Let us know what's going on, and so that we can make our comments. And thank you for listening to us.
Zoom ID, Florinda, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device. Zoom ID for Linda, if you would please, or Florinda, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Buenas noches, ¿me escuchan?
Oh, sí, puede continuar con su comentario.
Ok, permítame un poquito. Buenas noches, señor alcalde Sarmiento y concejales. Mi nombre es Florinda Rojas y soy residente de Santa Ana desde hace 10 años. Yo vivo en el vecindario Cornerstone Villagui, un vecindario que se compone de mini apartamentos y estándar apartamentos. Estos son apartamentos que no tienen nada en común con el vecindario de Metro Point. Nuestras necesidades son muy diferentes a las necesidades de los residentes de parte del sur de la parte sur de la ciudad. Por eso estoy en contra de K2 y apoyo a las dos versiones del mapa L2. Primeramente, Dios, esperamos que ustedes nos ayuden, que nos tomen en cuenta en sus decisiones que van a hacer ahorita, porque sí, la verdad, nosotros ocupamos de ustedes, aparte de nuestra familia que va chiquita, y pues ustedes nos han de ayudar y que Dios los bendiga. Gracias.
Good evening, Mayor Sarmiento and City Council members. My name is Florinda Rojas. I've been a resident of Santa Ana for 10 years. I'm a resident of Cornerstone Village and comprised of mini apartments and the standard apartments. And our community has nothing in common with Metro Point. Our needs are very different than the needs of the people in the south of the city. And again, I'm against map K2, and we support the two versions of L2. And may God help you and support you and you supporting us, and that you make your best decision for us. We need you to make this decision for our small families, and God bless you and thank you.
Zoom ID Carl Benninger, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I first of all appreciate all the hard effort that you guys are putting in. I've been there for many of the hours, and I know you've worked very hard on this. I'm still in favor of the mass F2 and K2. And I like them because of the fact that you look at the diversity in all 5 wards and the 6th ward being Vietnamese plurality. And I really think it does the best job representing the city. I also like it because I also like what you guys did on Monday, where you went through each one of the maps and the consultant made the changes. I like the changes that he made, because what it did is it brought neighborhoods together, which is my second point. I truly, living in Ward 4, south side of the city, I do see the need to keeping the south side together as well as the north side together. I guess what I differ with the mayor on is that I think the economic environmental justice, if it was divided into 2 wards, so be it, because then you have 2 council people responsible. And that's really not the issue. The real issue is a fair evaluation of what the hazards are and get working on cleaning them up. And that's really what we need to do, rather than years of study, as will sometimes happen. So thank you for your efforts you're making. I hope you go through what you did on Monday night with the consultant, reviewing each one of the maps, talking about what people like and dislike, and making the adjustments. And I think we're also close of getting there tonight. So with that, I want to thank you again for your effort and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID OCCCO, if you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment.
Yes, hi, good evening, Mayor and honorable council members and staff. This is Karen Alvarado again, lead organizer with OCO and part of the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. You already know that I'm calling in support of the SARC maps now being renamed, given some of the council feedback in the last meeting. During this past few days, we have engaged with community members since the last public hearing regarding the proposed revisions, now known as L2 and M2. And within those conversations, it is clear that community members are not okay with M2, but are open to the revisions that resulted in the creation of L2. We also created a revised version of L2 that we think incorporates all the feedback the public and you all have given in the last public hearings. And we agree that neighborhoods must be kept together, but most importantly, communities of interest need to be kept together. Today, I also want to take a time to take a little bit of a step back and speak from the perspective of my faith tradition, given that I organize across the city in various churches and congregations with multi-faith leaders. And during this time in my practicing faith is celebrating what we refer to as Lent, which is a time for intentional reflection and growth. It is really about putting the idea of loving your neighbor into practice, especially recognizing that we are all different and based on our different life experiences. So this also, puts us in a place to think that we really do have to listen to the feedback that people are giving us, right? And that's what leadership is learning how to listen and lead from where others are sharing from. And really, that's really what the coalition has done in the last few months. I believe that this council can come to a compromise that bridges and unifies the city. And that is what the coalition tried to do in the most recent L2 revised map that was shared with you all yesterday. I want to re-emphasize that these maps were drawn based on direct community input that center the lived experiences of highly impacted communities. Please consider them, and I hope you make the best decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID, Kyler, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you may proceed with your comment.
Awesome. Hello, Honorable City Council and Mayor. This is Kayla Asato, again, former Ward 3 resident with Orange County Environmental Justice, part of the SARC. Like the rest of the council, I am very, very much looking forward to this process being over. I am happy that we are talking about compromises that we can live with on the dais, and I'm happy that we actually have community input so that we can get community feedback before voting on one of these maps. Which I suppose brings me to the issues that I have with some of the maps, K and K2 in particular. In map K, we split up Madison Park into 2 districts, and in K2, we split it apart from Delhi. OCEJ works very closely with MPNA, Green, and the Cedar Street communities, and Delhi in particular. For today, the council has heard from Madison Park residents one time. Just once. And in that testimony, they said they don't want to be split up from Cedar, Delhi, and even going up as far as Logan. I'm here today to say the exact same thing. They shouldn't be separated from those communities. By all means, we should have the South Coast metro area have their own, residents have their own voice. Why does it have to come at the expense of people in Madison Park and Delhi? Several maps have southern districts that keep the EJ corridor intact, but also have the South Coast metro area residents having their own district. But 3 council members kept voting against those maps. So I was just wondering, has the council looked at the environmental burden data regarding the South Coast metro area versus the EJ corridor? It's vastly different from some of the areas in the industrial corridor east of Main Street. Doesn't matter what metric you use, soil, lead, air quality, water quality, general toxin burden, Superfund sites, anything. It's different. On this metric alone, we urge the council to ditch map K and K2, but I ask that the council does what is right for the community and stop trying to break up the EJ corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoom ID, Lionel Flores, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed with your comment.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Leonel Flores, lifelong resident of Madison Park, and just tuning in today to vocalize my support for the amended L2 map and my disapproval for map F or K2. After talking with the community, we feel that the compromises made with map L2 are acceptable, and we hope it's something the city decides that they can move forward with, since it keeps Madison Park intact and it keeps us united with the different EJ communities that we've been serving for the last couple of years. So once again, just wanted to express my support for map L2, the revised one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that was the last member of the public that wanted to provide a comment virtually.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. So let me go ahead and go to our single item for the business calendar today, which is the public testimony and draft maps and the council's consideration of these maps. And I know we have our consultant probably on the line and is available to answer any questions. He has a full presentation for us, but we've gone over that a few times. So I'm going to just go straight to the council and have them ask any questions, make any comments, identify any maps, and I'm sure that the consultant will be available for any questions. And Madam Clerk, is there anything that you wanted to report out or tell us since the last meeting that we had on this item?
No, I have nothing more to report out.
Great. Thank you. And City Attorney, you're good as well?
Yes, I'm good.
I know you're all thrilled to be here on a Friday evening. That's one thing I can tell. Everybody's
Yes.
smiling.
I was
So-
going to say, to the extent the council has further questions on the 10% deviation, I'm happy to.
Do you want to maybe just speak to that at this point? And I know that there was a couple of questions, and maybe it was from the council, but also from members of the public, and maybe we can just address that issue first.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Sorry, they told me last time to speak into the microphone. So I don't believe on Monday that I said a total population deviation above 10% was prohibited. The 14th Amendment and the Fair Maps Act require substantially equal population. And so case law has found that a deviation in the total population of below 10% is minor or de minimis, not requiring government justification. And that a plaintiff cannot rely on a population deviation alone of less than 10% to prove a violation of equal protection. So above 10%, and I believe this was the question that Councilmember Fan had asked on Monday, is considered constitutionally suspect and is subject to greater justification.
Right. Sounds like, maybe not so much a bright line rule, but there are some, anything below 10% would prevent any challenge or any serious challenge, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Well, and I think.
And Mayor, if I could throw in a couple words on this as well, because we've had members of the public contacting us directly, and we don't
Go ahead,
communicate
Councilor.
We don't
kidding.
communicate with members of the public outside of the public hearings. We have not, at Redistricting Partners, we've done 100 redistrictings this cycle. We have never done a plan that had more than 10% deviation. And in fact, the only kind of modern case of that 10% deviation being used regularly is in Hawaii, where if they didn't exceed the 10% deviation, they would have portions of islands in different legislative districts. And so for that reason, they have districts that are over 10% deviation, but I haven't seen it anywhere else.
Great, thank you.
That's an example of the really special case.
Understood. All right, well, let me go ahead and, just bring it back to the council. I think we all are familiar with some of the maps that are before us and maybe even some additional maps that were just offered up for members of the public as well for consideration. And, let me just begin tonight's comments and discussion in saying I think we're all in the spirit of trying to not relinquish this responsibility to others if we don't have to, especially others that are not as familiar with the city as we are. It doesn't make us perfect in knowing what answers there are to some of the questions and how lines should be drawn. And but I think that amongst all of us, we were given this responsibility amongst many to just try to figure out the best way to get to some solution. So I hope we do it in the spirit of good faith, and we do it in the spirit of compromise and trying to come up with a good product that may not be ideal for everybody, but at the very least gets us to a place where we can all agree is a better step than just certainly just relieving ourselves of that decision making. So with that, let me go ahead and ask any members of the council if they have any comments they want to start with, any maps they want to discuss first. Great. And before I call on Councilmember Fan, please, Clerk, if you'll let me know if Councilmember Mendoza has her hand raised. I can't, that way you can keep an eye out for her as well. Councilmember Fan.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I'd like to first start off with, we are seriously approaching a deadline that would greatly jeopardize the city's position. I have talked to the city clerk and asked, well, what is the cost if we end up going to litigation? If we don't select a map, approve a map in time, what does that look like? Well, that could cost us $400,000 to $500,000 for failing to come to consensus on this dais. I think that for $400,000 or $500,000, we can do a lot of good in our community. And so I do urge my colleagues to come to consensus and to compromise. No one will get everything they want. No community will get everything that they want. But I do believe that we can get most of what we want and continue to work together. The second thing I do want to also say is that if we do select a map that does not comply with the Fair Maps Act, it seriously jeopardizes our position again, because we would still be sued. There, in fact, jurisdiction, San Luis Obispo County, they're raking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in defending their map against litigation. And finally, I want to also say that in the event that we are sued and a court decides, how they want to pursue drafting a map, we don't really know what that would look like. I've heard that in Santa Monica, they deposed council members to say, why did you select that map? That was challenged. In Palmdale, they required all council members to be re-elected at the same election and restart the clock on each person's terms. So I think that's the seriousness that we need to take this, and we need to make that compromise. And so with that, I would like to elevate and discuss a few maps. First is map M2. Again, this is a compromise map that Councilmember Peñalosa worked to try to adjust. What we've heard today is that we really want a map in the EJ corridor. But I also want to remind the public that the climate emergency resolution that was brought forth and passed was initially brought forth by Councilmember Lopez. She does not live in the EJ corridor. The other person who worked with her greatly on it and had many meetings with community groups on it was me. I do not live in the EJ corridor. And when we passed the climate emergency reso, I believe it was passed unanimously, or by a majority. And again, not all of us are in the EJ corridor. So I do believe that many council members can work together to support climate justice and environmental justice throughout the city, wherever it may be. So I'd like to bring that forward. The second map I'd like to see brought forth is map L2 revised. I do think that it meets many of the conditions that we've requested, and it does keep the communities together. The other map I'd also like to see brought forward is map ID 118257. Those two are substantially similar, and they have different preferences. So I'd like to see my colleagues discuss that. And then another map I'd like to see brought forth is map, let me see what number this is, 118741. However, I'd like to make a couple edits to that map because I don't think it's fully population balanced, but I think that we can make it population balanced in order to comply with the Fair Maps Act. So if it's okay, I'd like for Paul to bring that up and for us to kind of just adjust it so that way we're talking about the same thing.
Sure, if everybody's okay with those, with the selection of those maps. Were you talking about Paul bringing up the last map that you referenced?
Yeah, 118741, because I think the population's at like 11%. If you do a small adjustment, it will meet the under 10%
Great.
Kind of rule of thumb.
Paul, can you find that in your file of many maps?
So this was a map that came to us this afternoon, so it's still in the districtor platform. but I can bring it up and we can definitely make changes to it here. Councilmember Fan is correct. If you look here, you have a district that's 6.42% over, and then you have another district that is 4.1% under, so a total plan deviation of just around 10.5%. So what that means is that one of two things needs to happen. Either the district here, this District 4, needs to grow a little bit, taking population from somewhere else, or this this green district needs to shrink a little bit, giving some population to either the district on the western side or giving population to one of these three districts on its perimeter. So,
Yeah. So I have some recommendations. Is that okay, Paul?
Yeah, sure.
So for the yellow district, and I do want to briefly comment, there was a commenter who stated that, well, there are only 12% Asian. Why do we have to have an Asian plurality district? We were sued. We settled the lawsuit because the Asian American community in Santa Ana live in a substantially similar area, and they have never been able to elect a candidate of their choice until we were redistricted under the California Voting Rights Act. So this entire council does not want to go to litigation again to relitigate an issue that we have already settled. That is why the Asian plurality district is necessary, and we're all in agreement on that issue. And with that, Paul, for the yellow district, right where the river is, below Willowick, you're kind of looking at south of First and west of Fairview. So that block right there. Yep. So all of those added into the yellow district. And then if you go to southeast Santa Ana, everything south of Dyer.
Let me look at what's happening here so far. Okay. This would be balanced, but you want to do another one?
Yes.
What's the other one?
So go to southeast Santa Ana to where the green and purple meet, or green and magenta. Oh, okay, it is purple.
Dyer?
South of Dyer, put all of that into the green.
From the freeway across?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now we're at a deviation of 7.31.
And can you bring it up actually also to the commercial corridor right there east of Costa Mesa Freeway, the Costa Mesa Freeway?
Where do you want me to go?
So that
this part here?
Yeah, that whole block there close to Tustin and Irvine, I think it is actually a bit more similar to South Santa Ana. So if you, the entire rectangle. Yeah.
Diagonal rectangle, this whole thing?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see what happens here. Yeah, that's fine. Your total plan deviation is 7, basically.
Okay.
Let me fix this. There's a little fix there. Yeah, so we could get something like this, done tonight or over the weekend, get it to you in the same PDF format with all the different data tables, but all the data is here. You can see the layout. We can zoom in if people have questions about where boundaries are. But we can get you the actual PDFs of those after the hearing, and we can give it a letter if the council members choose to elevate it.
Thanks, Paul. So those are, I guess, the 4 maps that I'd like for us to discuss. Once again, that's M2, L2 revised, 118257, as well as 118741 with the edits that Paul made. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for those comments and identifying those maps. Anybody else want to offer anything up? Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento. Thank you, Councilmember Fan, for your comments. I wanted to lift the map that staff recently submitted. Let me try to find the map number. I believe the ID number is 118741. Staff
The one we
today.
just looked at.
Yes, yes. So that map,
Yeah.
that map is a map that I'm supportive of. I'm also supportive of L2, and I think that's the only map. Is there still SARC map 1? What is the name for that map now? Is that L?
SARC 1 is L. It's SARC 1A is L2.
Okay, so both SARC maps I am supportive of. I'd like to bring those to the front as well. So the map that I want to take a look at, and these are some of the recommendations that I have for map L2. The map that I'm looking at right now on my screen, if there's any way that you can put this on our screen here so that members of the community can see it.
Which one is it?
L2.
Oh, sure, yeah. We go to here, I've got all of them.
And
L2
it's the most revised one.
That's L2 revised right there.
Yes, okay, so this map is a map that I am supportive of. I think that this is a map that has met the needs of many comments from members of the public. Many constituents that do live within my district have also echoed their support. Most notably, it keeps the Willowwick community intact, keeps the Artisa Pilar neighborhood together, and it keeps the black businesses and churches, although there is a very small number, it does keep them together, and it also keeps the Sullivan community together. So my support will be going to this map today. I will not be supporting map F or map K. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, council member. Let me go ahead and go to anybody else on the council that has questions or comments. So I think we have right now, do we have 5 maps that have been elevated? Or what's the total count? I know Councilmember Fan elevated 4, and I believe Councilmember Hernandez, did you elevate an additional one? Or is it one of the same ones that Councilmember Fan had already mentioned?
I believe it was it's 2 of the ones I already mentioned, L2
Yes.
revised as well as 714 or 741.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. How's Councilmember Mendoza doing? Is she good?
Yeah, she hasn't raised her hand. Councilmember Fan, just for clarification, did you want to consider the one that Paul modified or the 118741?
No, it's 741, but as I mentioned, the modifications that we made on the dais.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any? Councilmember Peñalosa?
Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento. The question, I just wanted some clarity, and thank you, Councilmember Fan, for your comments about L2 with the changes that I had, or suggested changes that I had made on, was it Monday night or Tuesday? I don't even know when we last met. But I pulled up L2, Paul, the one that's posted, but it doesn't, I wasn't sure if that's the one that we made changes to from, was it M2 or L2 that we did on Monday night?
So we did a lot of them. L2 is SARC 1A, and then we did an L2 version A, which was the revision of that, I believe. That's where it got confusing.
Yeah, I figured it out now. Thank you. Just a little bit. The issues I have right now with L2 is the fact that it continues to break away Memorial Park from Wilshire Square, which they have that shared community interest of Main Street corridor. Both of those communities have been very active the last couple of years in advocating and keeping on, just staying on top of what's happening on the Main Street corridor, and with the updates of the general plan and the fear that's coming along with that. And also the fact that we know that there's a lot of development coming to the east of the 55 freeway, and that also seems to be now separated. And that's a community that is definitely shares the same common interests. I do want to bring back Paul, map 118741, with the one that Councilmember Fan made some changes to.
You want to view it on the screen now?
Yeah, please, if you can.
Okay, sure.
Can you zoom in to the down to where's Henninger Park? Because that was another concern that we had, that we wanted to make sure that Henninger Park wasn't broken apart.
So
I guess, can you tell me where Broadway Street is?
this is McFadden here,
Okay.
Edinger down here, First Street here, Flower and Orange. Bishop is right here.
Okay, and Broadway?
Where is Broadway?
It's right between Orange and,
It's west of Main Street.
it's in Henninger Park.
Broadway runs through Memorial Park.
Oh, right
Wilshire
there,
Square.
South Broadway, right there. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and then so it's not, so it keeps Henninger Park together, correct?
I want to look at the district, or I want to look at the neighborhood association map real quick, just to make sure.
Well, I could tell you just if you tell me, because I'm trying to squint here. There's a glare on this screen in the council chambers.
Yeah.
Not your fault. But I just want to make Broadway. Can you put your mouse where Broadway and what would be McFadden is at?
Yeah, let me just looking. Yeah, McFadden is the boundary there.
Okay, so it's all together. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
This is
that-
McFadden right here. So it is all together based on the map, yeah.
Okay, and can you hover over to the 55 freeway? So zoom out and then just hover over to what would be southeast.
Sure. Sorry, I'm going back and forth between looking at it here and looking at it on Maptitude.
And then zoom in along, I believe that was Dyer Road. Okay, I just to the far west, the purple line, that's Main Street, correct? Okay,
The far west, this is Main Street here, and then this is the freeway right here.
perfect, thank you. So it keeps all of Delhi together, it keeps Henninger Park together. The Environmental Justice Corridor is in the same ward, which I really appreciate because it's, again, and Councilmember Fan said it best, we have thousands I could honestly say, communities of interest combined with neighborhoods and maybe not thousands, but hundreds, and just different walks of life. And I don't appreciate many of the comments that I heard that are just very divisive. I know there was an earlier iteration of a map that put Washington Square into the northern ward, and many of the callers said, they're homeowners, they're trying to be with the other homeowners, that's not correct, blah, blah, blah. And then here it's like, now the argument is switched, but it's contradictory to saying, well, you can't have the apartments on the east end with homes in the south. It's like, make up your mind. If you're gonna come in and talk the divisive comments that we've been hearing for 4 months now, make up your mind of what you want to see. Do you want to separate people by socioeconomic class? Because that's not right either. That's terrible. So I'm very happy with these changes. Thank you, Councilmember Fan, for proposing these changes to that map. I would also like to voice my support in elevating that map with the changes, which was, I guess, 118741, with the changes that were brought forward by Councilmember Fan, Paul, because it's the best to try to, accommodate the hundreds of communities of interest that we have in this city. No map's gonna be perfect, but this one is one that gets us closest to. So thank you for that. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Just one thing I would point out to, I think when you were referring to map L2 map L2 revised, breaking up Memorial and Wilshire Square, I think that was the original map L2, because map L2 revised looks like they have them in the same district. So just something I think that was addressed in the revised version. But in any event, thank you for those comments. Let me move on to see if there's anybody else. So just so I'm keeping track, we had somebody talking about map 118741, and in addition to Councilmember Fan and Councilmember Hernandez wanting to look at that map. Any other questions or comments from members of the council on any other maps? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo some of the sentiments that I heard, especially when we're talking about environmental justice, because unfortunately, much of the city has environmental justice issues. And when it comes to whether somebody who does not live in the environmental justice area can help those that are in the environmental justice area, I would point to myself and say, ask the folks in Logan how many times I've come to try to help them with the issues that they face. And if there's ever a part of this city that has been impacted with environmental justice issues, I've worked with my colleague, Councilmember Hernandez, on this. Many times we've done walks in the area, we've talked to the residents, we've tried to do things, and we will continue to do things to improve the quality of life over there. I live on the south end of town, but you know what? I love this entire city, from Floral Park down to Sandpoint, okay? And so really, at the end of the day, I don't think that where the line falls when it comes to an issue really should decide that. I mean, if we're gonna do that, we can talk about the street racing ward. We can talk about how on the south end of town, where we've got long streets with large distances between lights, we can talk about that street racing is a very impactful thing on the south end of town. And then I know the counter would be, yeah, but we have street racing in other parts of town, and that is correct. But again, I don't know the accuracy of assigning an issue to an area. But with that being said, I started off this process really enamored with Map F. I thought it addressed a lot of the issues, well, a lot of the legal issues and a lot of the concerns expressed by myself and my colleagues. And then I saw Map K and I said, oh my goodness, talk about simplifying what Map F was trying to do. And I really, really thought that Map K was just the way to go. But I got to tell you, not only have I really started to look at, as we talk about compromise and how we're going to, all find ourselves in a way where we all can come to an agreement. I look at 118741, and as much as I love the simplicity of Map K, I look at this one, I go, wow, this checks the boxes for all these concerns that people are saying. The areas on the east where you have a lot of industry just across the street from residential uses, you have this put together. It's again, I like the simplicity of Map K, I really do, but I look at 118741 and I think it can, really just checks the boxes. I want to applaud Councilmember Fan for some of the changes that she made, because I think those two make sense. It really, at the end of the day, it's something where we've all gone, remember, we're in our 9th meeting on this issue. We had a meeting on Monday, the length of which we typically cover 30 items, and we did it on 1 item. So I know we've all talked this thing to death, but I would just say at this point, I do like F and K, but I really look at 118741 with the changes that Councilmember Fan made, and I could definitely support that. So those are my comments at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the council with any comments? So we've narrowed it down to 4 maps, is that what it is?
I have M2, L2,
L2 revised.
revised, 118257, 118741 modified or revised,
Okay,
and then L.
great. Well, I guess if nobody else has any comments, I think that, I think we've spoken about a lot of the maps already, and I think we've already discussed this sort of at a high level. And I think, the maps that have been identified, I think are strong maps for us to look at. One of the things I would say before we maybe start looking at them a little bit closer, if we're going to do that now, and maybe we want to narrow it down tonight, because my understanding is that the timing of this is, as was mentioned earlier, is pretty sensitive and short. So we may want to come to some understanding if we can settle on a map on the first meeting in April, I believe, which is that the 5th? And then that would be the first reading for consideration, and then the second reading would be at the following meeting, which would make it right under the wire before the statutory deadline. Correct?
Did you want to speak on that?
Or did we?
Because I think.
Remind us on the timing, but basically the specific dates and.
Well, I'll defer to Daisy on.
Daisy, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the options that we can bring to the council on April 5th is because the deadline is April 17th, and that's on a weekend. I believe it's on a Sunday, Yes, Sunday. So the April 19th will not make the deadline for the adoption, but there is a solution where we can adopt a resolution approving the map at that April 5th meeting, so we can submit that, and that'll comply with the Fair Maps Act. And also introduce the ordinance at that same meeting, and then the final adoption could be the following meeting,
Okay,
April
so that's the
19th.
path right now.
Yes.
All right, that makes sense, and I think it'll hopefully encourage us to, look at this. And, just comments from my end on these maps, I think that, I do like map L2 revised, because it made a couple of changes that I think were important. And this other map, 118741, as was revised. I would say, if there's a way to adjust, and Paul, maybe you can bring that back up.
Uh-huh.
I'll wait for you to bring it up. If you go to the magenta colored district and you go to the far east of it, the lower far east, sort of where.
Sorry.
Sorry. So there's an area that it says Lion Street.
Right here?
Yeah, there, and maybe not going too far west on that, but maybe, bringing a panel down on that. I know that those communities are a lot of multifamily communities that live in that area. I know because I used to represent that area as well.
So bringing the magenta down a little bit?
Yeah, but as far east as you can go, so bring it down a little bit. Maybe it's like a leg.
Oh, like this?
Yeah, and without disrupting too much of the numbers and the deviation, and maybe.
Yeah. For a sense of scale, that made it 9% just in that district. So it would have you'd have a planned deviation right now of 17%.
Okay, so see if you can look at that, because I know that that's a community that's been kept intact in the past. So maybe that's one more of some homework that you can do to come up with.
While we're here, the way to do it would be to
maybe lose French Court. Yeah.
Yeah. So you put French Court into the purple district, and if you put French Court in the purple district, now you have the opportunity to put this into that's perfectly balanced.
Okay. Well, look, that was one of the adjustments. I think everything else looks decent, I think, with, some of the other adjustments that were made. Let me just, say that for those that are talking about, there's not an EJ corridor, there really isn't a thing called an EJ corridor, but I can tell you that the Delhi, Madison, and Cornerstone mini neighborhoods have a lot in common. They have the railroad tracks that run through most of their neighborhoods, and they've had this, incompatibility issue with their parks, schools, and multifamily homes that are right up against some heavy and light industrial. So whether you want to call it an EJ district or not, it is one community of interest that shares a common problem, in addition to Logan, which is further north. But nonetheless, Delhi, Logan, some of the oldest neighborhoods in the city. And I represented that ward, which is the old Ward 1 years ago. And there were a lot of, I want to say, sort of common interests and almost economies of scale when we would have readings by AQMD, be taken out there when there was a chrome plating plant that was introduced. You have some groundwater contamination issues that meander from Irvine north, and they go into the Delhi neighborhood and up into Madison. So there are a lot of common problems that they share, and the fact that there are a lot of multifamily homes. Cornerstone Mini used to be the old barracks for Marines who were stationed in El Toro years and years ago. So there's a lot of old history, and I was talking to somebody today about Delhi being where the old braceros used to live. Braceros was, it was a program where migrants from Mexico were brought in to do field labor and construction here, and they were housed in some of those areas, both in Delhi and Logan. So there are some historical reasons why these neighborhoods should be kept together as well. I think it's not, again, my preference is L2 revised because it has cleaner lines, but I can see maybe some compromise with this new map. I don't know if we want to attach a letter to it. 118741 is an odd way to refer to it, but to the extent we attach something to it, I think there's some promise there. In the spirit of trying to get something done, I don't want to relinquish this to anybody else. It's not really, it's a cost issue, but it's more, the responsibility of things and making sure that we all understand that we have to figure this out. And I was wondering why we're having difficulty this time versus, I know when I went through this exercise in 2010. Well, in 2010, we were redrawing boundaries again based upon, population shifts, but we all ran at large. So there were no districts. So really, it didn't matter, boundary lines as much as they do now. So I think this is what's making, our exercise a little bit more complicated. But I would suggest, maybe for members who are going to be around in 2030 to consider maybe delegating this to either a committee of residents or others, just because I think it's very difficult to do this. But look, something to consider for somebody else. It certainly won't be me, but for others. So, Paul, I think that's, those are my comments. And I think, this new map that we're looking at, it does address the issues that I have been mentioning from the beginning, which is keeping, again, Delhi, Madison, Cornerstone Mini together, now with this addition of possibly this Lion neighborhood. But it really does also wrap Willowick, which is something that was important to me, Sullivan, and some of the other items that were mentioned by council members. So in any event, those are my comments, and I think that might be a compromise map that I could support.
Would you like for me to make that map N, and then with your changes, we can make that map N2?
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you.
We can have both of those.
Point of clarification, Mayor Sarmiento?
Go ahead.
If I can. So N would just be the original 118741, and then N2 would be...
N would be the one that Councilmember Fan made changes to. And then the additional changes we just made in that French Court and Lion Street area that the mayor made, that would be N2.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, I just wanted clarity. We're going to run out of letters.
The other map will be posted to the website as a public submission under the number, but for the purposes of bringing up as a letter, we'll use Councilmember Fan and then the mayor's modifications.
Awesome, thank you.
Great.
Any other comments or questions?
Just
go ahead.
Mayor, could you, just so I can make sure I understand, so N is what 118741 with Councilmember Fan's changes, and then Mayor, you made some yourself, and it was along over here in Lion Street?
It was, I think, shifting Lion Street down and incorporating that into the magenta ward, and then putting French Court into the purple ward.
This purple here and this magenta here.
I don't know which one's I mean, I'm seeing purple on the, I don't know the difference between purple and magenta, so, what?
So,
Okay.
yeah, the population
So
in
just those
French
two.
Court, swap for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you for the clarification.
Yes. So I haven't heard, I think I've heard from everybody. Councilmember Mendoza, let me just do a check-in with you. Are you good?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento. I am still taking a look at all the maps, and I would like a few more minutes. I'm still juggling between a couple of maps. So if my colleagues can have another round, and I will go after the last person, if that's okay with my colleagues.
Sure. Go ahead and take a little bit more time, and you know, I'm not sure how much more we have, but we'll go ahead and give you a little bit more time. Councilmember Lopez?
I guess if I could just get a roll call on the maps that have been advanced.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Roll call on the maps that were advanced.
I'm so sorry, I cannot hear you.
A roll call on the maps that were advanced.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you. So, Councilmember Fan, did you,
I thought you were just going to list the maps out.
okay, do you want me to list out the maps before I do a roll call?
M2,
Okay, sure.
It's
So
L2
I have,
revised.
yeah.
It's 118257, 118741 revised, which is now
N2.
With the N.
And then the ones further revised, which is N2.
And also L, I got that from Councilmember, and that's the only
No.
difference from.
L2 or L2 revised?
L2 revised.
Okay. Yeah, so he meant L2 revised, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
L2 revised. And did you also, Councilmember Hernandez, also state that you wanted L as well? Okay, yeah. And that's all I have.
So then I'll just add 380 to the list. $380, 118380.
Councilmember Lopez, can you repeat that? 118?
ID 118380.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, on the last map, set 8741, I did also want to echo my support for the changes that you proposed and the Councilmember Fan proposed. I do also think having that portion of line in the dark purple or magenta color, if you will, I do support those changes and keeping French Park as part of the purple boundary as well. So I just wanted to echo my support there.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember, go ahead, Councilmember Fan, or were you done, Councilmember Lopez?
Yeah, that concluded my comments.
Thanks. Councilmember Fan?
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to ask my colleagues, because we did talk about L2 revised, and if there's no support for consideration of 118257, I can just withdraw that. One of the reasons why so this map, I elevated it because a couple things. One is it's very similar to L2 revised. I actually spoke to the Santa Ana Redistricting Coalition. In fact, I sent a very urgent email after our Monday night meeting and set up a meeting with them to discuss some of these issues. One area is that downtown Santa Ana is also on that Main Street corridor, and so 118257 adds downtown Santa Ana to that brown districts. And Paul, actually, if you can bring it up, I think that might be really helpful. And then for the red district, also brings down, just to population balance, brings the red district all the way down to Edinger. There you go. Oh my gosh, that looked like I was doing that with my I thought I was screen sharing for a minute. So, I don't know if there's any appetite to take a look at this map. Again, I think that the downtown area makes a lot of sense to just kind of keep it as much as possible with the Main Street corridor, but if no one else is supportive of it, then I'll withdraw it. Thank you.
I think that's fine. I think if, because we have a map that's really similar to that, so why have two that are almost identical?
Yeah, so I think then we can eliminate that map also.
While we're on a roll, anybody else want to eliminate any maps?
No, I wanted to maybe then just ask, maybe Councilmember Lopez, you had elevated map 118380. I hadn't heard anyone else bring that up, but I'd love to hear your reasoning as to why you support that map.
I think 380, it's similar to what you elevated with 257. The only difference is really the center parts of the city that are looking a little different to me. So I think that is why I elevated it. I like the lines, and I like that the east end of the city stays together. Though that's reflective of the comments that I've made earlier in other public meetings, and so that is why I elevated 380.
Great, thanks. So okay. Anybody else have any additional comments?
Mayor Sarmiento, may I make a couple of comments?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Well, it definitely has been a very complex and difficult process. It's my first time, and I tell you, it feels like going through the ringer. And I certainly don't want the city to incur $500,000 of expenses in going to the court to decide for something that is my responsibility to decide. And I had elevated map K and map F because it seemed that that's what the appropriate equality for all of our boards. However, in light and in the spirit of compromise in getting the job done and making the hard decisions and doing what the voters elected me to do, I am willing to compromise and elevate map 118741 with the changes that were incorporated by my colleague Tai Pham, and maybe even possibly looking at the ones that the mayor made to the same map. So that's the map ending in 741. That one would get my support, and I believe that we can reach a consensus with this map. Thank you.
Councilmember Fan?
Yeah, so with that, I would like to make a motion to elevate the maps, given that we did have, some changes, and just to narrow them down. With that, I'd like to move, and this motion is based on kind of the consensus I've been hearing, and I think that would be really helpful for us if we were to have another meeting about this. And so I would like to elevate, I'd like to make a motion to elevate map L2 revised, as well as map, or what will be known as map N2.
Great. So we have a motion on the floor to elevate map L2 revised and map N as in Nancy 2.
I'd like to ask the maker of the motion, just because I think at this point, with the changes, I mean, they're great changes. They make, at least from just looking at it, make sense. Obviously, it'll be determined by Paul as far as whether the numbers match up and make sense. So would you be open to keeping your original, I guess we're calling it N, and just because in the sense that if N2 for some reason didn't work and N worked, or vice versa, if N2 worked but N didn't work, but just having those options, because they're pretty much the same map with minor tweaks in little areas, but would you be open to keeping N in there?
I am, but looking at it on Districtor, the numbers do work out. So
Actually, I'm going to rescind it, because at this point, if we do need to make tweaks to N2, we would just make the tweaks. Yeah, so just to keep one, yeah. You know, I rescind it, so I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, Councilmember Hernandez.
So the map 8741, I am supportive of this map. However, there's just one small modification I would request. I'm really happy that it's keeping the Sullivan community together, but my request would be to move from McFadden to Diamond Street, to keep that so that we don't separate the Jerome Park community, and move that small portion from Willits to McFadden, Sullivan to Jerome Park on this map, to move it eastbound, so that way it's one line from Willits down to Bristol. So what we would be cutting out is Diamond Street to McFadden, Sullivan to Monte Vista, that small square, and we would just extend it outward down to Bristol Street, eastbound.
Councilmember, can we, why don't we ask Paul to see if he can put it on the screen and see if he can make those changes in real time, see what it does to the numbers. He may have to adjust in some other area. Paul, did you hear the council member's direction?
So
I've got the right area, so is it to make this area blue here?
Yeah, so essentially the entire square of Jerome Park we want to keep together, so that way there's one representative, and that is much better. So I think if there's a way for us to do that, I am absolutely supportive of this map, and I think a way for us to make up for that gap is if we extend eastbound towards Bristol Street, whether it be Pacific or Bristol.
We don't need to do anything to balance that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Then in that case, that makes it much more simple, and it keeps the Jerome community together.
Do we want to make this the revision to N2?
You okay with that, Councilmember Fan?
I'm actually concerned, does that affect Sullivan? I'm trying to think of the community submitted maps, and let me see where I put it. So Sullivan goes from, I think, First
to McFadden.
Mm-hmm. So I think this does break up Sullivan.
Well, it keeps Sullivan together. The only thing that it does separate is the Jerome Park from this boundary, or this district, if you will, and places it into its own district, because right now it's cut in half between Monte Vista and McFadden.
Right. So, I mean, just based on, I think we probably got 20 public community of interest submissions handwritten at the community events. And specifically, they draw it from Fairview on the west side, North First, South McFadden, and on the right-hand side, it kind of goes, what street is that? I think Wright. So I think if you, that's how Sullivan was drawn to me, and I think we've heard more comments from people. Sullivan, and so I wouldn't be supportive of that, only because that has been the community that has been very vocal about that specific area. And historically, Sullivan has been split up, and I know that Sullivan and Acción, the mobile home park residents, as well as a lot of the tenants, have specifically advocated for that community to stay together.
Okay. Well, in that case, I am okay with what's reflected now. If that's what the Sullivan community is asking for, I'm okay with that. I just was thinking, for the sake of Jerome Park, a very large park, lots of youth programming there, I didn't want to see it divided into two, but if Sullivan is looking to keep that together, then I'm certainly not going to be opposed to that.
Great, thank you for those comments. Councilmember Lopez?
Yes. Paul, do you mind bringing back up the map since we're doing
Sure.
changes? So can you zoom in into Lion? Because right now I see that part of it is highlighted and not the, so right now the neighborhood is literally split down the middle.
Yes, in the N2 version, it comes down here and takes in this population on this one side of Lion. Taking in more would likely create big population problems.
What is the limit for each district?
The total population limit,
Yeah.
it's more that the largest district and the smallest district can't be more than about 520 apart from each other. So this district here right now is over by 1%. If it was to take in, any more, it would very quickly get to be, now it's over by 6.5%. So there's not a lot of room to adjust population there.
Okay. Can you zoom out of the?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any additional comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Councilmember Fan?
I just wanted to quickly, Councilmember Lopez, unfortunately, I think, because Lion, as far as I can tell, in pretty much all of the maps, Lion Street has been split because that whole community or neighborhood association, it goes all the way over from, even past the Santa Ana Freeway. So unfortunately, I think it might be kind of Jerome Park where it's just one of the splits we really need to do to make the population balance and balance other communities of interest.
But in the current map now, it's not split up.
The 741?
No, the current maps now.
The existing map. that
Yes.
Right. So, but my point is I think for many of the maps that we've elevated or discussed tonight, it has done that, and part of that was just because of the population balance. So if we moved it, then of course we'd have to move other areas. That's all.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Real quick, just a question. So with the motion that's before us right now, we're elevating the two maps. So then I guess what's our next step? Are we having another special meeting, or are we bringing this to the first meeting in April? The first regular council meeting?
We're going to have another meeting to ensure that we are able to just narrow it down to one map. And what we want to do is the ones that have been revised, especially those tonight, we want to ensure that we have it posted on the website at least 7 days before council can actually vote on that.
All right, so right now we're at March 11th, right? Our first meeting in April would be April 5th, correct?
Correct.
So definitely would have enough time to post these two. Let me ask the maker of the motion, if you'll indulge me for a second. What if we were to modify the motion to have or direct staff to prepare resolutions and a first read of an ordinance for both maps in anticipation of potentially selecting one of them?
I actually was going to withdraw my motion or amend my motion to only elevate map N2 or what would be considered N2. This motion, I hope that it receives 5 votes to indicate to staff very clearly that we are willing to move forward with a map with an ordinance to be read on April 5th without further special meetings to discuss. So because it's not technically a draft map yet, it's only an exercise, again, to let staff know the direction that we expect on April 5th.
So,
is that okay, Madam City Attorney? Or Paul, if that made any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So we should, but a resolution and an ordinance, correct?
Yes, so I want to elevate map 118741 with the edits that I made as well as the mayor made, so map N2, that's what we're calling it, and direct staff to prepare a resolution and an ordinance for first reading on April 5th.
Okay, so that's a new motion because you withdrew your previous motion,
And
so we have a
I'll
new
second
motion.
her new motion.
Got it. We have a new motion that was made by Councilmember Fan, and I think it was clear. It was just to focus in on this revised N2, and we have a second on that. Any other questions or comments on this? And we've got our understanding is that the resolution and ordinance will come to us on April 5th without any further special meetings to have to deliberate because it'll be a singular map that's going to be before us.
Correct.
Anything else from the council?
Just clarification.
Yes, Councilman.
Motion once more, please. So what's the difference between the first that you withdrew?
I believe that based on the comments I've heard, there is consensus to move forward with a map. And so instead of having another special meeting next week or the week after, and go through the rigmarole of, again, adjusting boundaries and posting the map for 7 days before we can vote on an ordinance or resolution, I believe that based on the consensus on this council tonight, we can direct staff clearly to put map N2, which after 7 days, it will be considered a draft map, and have it be adopted via resolution and first reading of an ordinance on April 5th.
These are the proposed changes from you and the mayor.
Yes, so my changes made it population balanced, and then the mayor's changes moved French Court from the pink ward to the purple ward, and then had everything east of Lion Street to go from the purple ward to the pink ward.
That makes sense. Okay. And so the newly updated map, we would be able to see that?
I think, Paul, if you can just bring it up now, that would be the final version of what would be displayed in the resolution and the first reading of the ordinance.
Okay.
Assuming you can publish it tomorrow or the day after, and it'll meet the 7-day publishing deadline.
Councilmember Hernandez, if I could just remind you to use the microphone, because thank you.
Got it. So I think, I think the question was, will that map be before us when we, as finally drawn? And seeing no other questions or comments, we have the motion and a second by Councilmember Fan. One of the reasons I'll be supportive is because I see that this reconciles with map L2 revised as I'm looking at it. Some of the changes here, wrapping Willowick, creating that at least East Lion neighborhood together, and again, putting together Pacific Park, Cornerstone Mini, Madison and Delhi reconcile with some of the changes that I wanted to see reflected on a map moving forward. So I will be looking at this very seriously. I think I'm good with the changes that were made. So seeing nothing further, let's go ahead and call the vote. Colleagues, please vote on this.
Councilmember Mendoza, were you able to connect to the software, or did you want to announce your vote?
I wasn't able to connect, and my vote is yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Hernandez, Lopez, Mendoza, Peñalosa, Fan, Mayor Pro Tem Becerra, and Mayor Sarmiento voting yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Look, I just wanted to...
And by the way, that was 11 public hearings.
I bet you there's a lot more
9.
people clapping virtually. I don't know, maybe not. Listen, I want to say thank you to the council. I want to thank staff. Thank you, Paul, for also being able to do this with us in real time. Mission almost accomplished, but we're very much closer than we were. I'm glad that we were able to kind of work through this and get this figured out. It is very taxing on not just us, but remember on our staffs when we bring them in for special meetings when we can avoid that and try to, do this in, in regular time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I think adjourn the meeting. So the next meeting, no special meeting scheduled. So we are adjourned till Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. No, please don't. All right, everybody. I know. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Recording stopped.